Hey, Bob Azumi here, and we're down in my old stomping grounds in southwestern Ontario at Mitchell's Bay, just on the east side of Lake St Clair. And you know, I grew up fishing in southwestern Ontario, and the fishing is off the charts. When you get Lake St Clair bass fishing, the smallmouth fishing is second to none. Should be lots of fun, and I'd almost say I could guarantee a fish. Let's see how it works out. Wow. That is a fish of a lifetime. There we go, boy. Wow, that thing is a monster. They fight hard, don't they?
Look at that magnificent fish.
Look at the size of that fish.
There he is again.
The color is incredible. Oh, there we go.
The Real Fishing Show with Bob Azumi.
Big old Great Lakes smallmouth. That is a big rainbow trout, Chris. Nice double header.
Whoa.
Nice jump.
Yeah. All right. That is a monster smallmouth. Man, that is so cool. Another one, there we go. The biggest pike I've ever caught. Look at that chunk. So that's what we're talking about.
Real Fishing is sponsored by Mercury, Go Boldly, Berkley, Catch More Fish, and Abu Garcia for life.
On the Real Fishing Show, we make catching fish like this a possibility. You can let them chew on this Max Scent because there's no question that when they hit it, they do not let go. And I'm just gonna set down the power poles into the sand here. One of the things is that when you're throwing on sand like I'm doing, you want to make long casts, because this is only like 5 or 6 feet deep here off Mitchell's Bay. And you know, these fish are cruising this sand, and they get a fair amount of pressure. There's quite a few guys that like to fish here for these smallmouth, so you want to make long casts for these fish. Oh, this is a pretty good one here. And what I like to do is fill my spinning reel up full of 10-pound nanofill. Get the net out for this guy. Okay. Oh. There's another one that was bigger than this fall one, but and that's just your typical St Clair smallmouth. I mean, there's just so many fish this size roaming around out here, and you know, just nice, well-proportioned fish. Get this baby back in. Let's see if we can get another one. Yeah, it's so funny because sometimes these fish will pick up just so light. And that fish there, it felt like almost like a perch or a panfish hitting. Here we are. Definitely not a big fish by any means, but fun, especially in that warmer water. They're fighting hard. Boy, this. Okay. I'm going through some baits here. They're shaking them off on me. That's so funny. I thought it was hung up on a weed. Oh, that's a big fish. I thought I was hung up on a weed, and I'm shaking and shaking away a second ago, and then all of a sudden I realized there's a fish on the end. Oh, that's a big one. That's a St Clair smallmouth right here. I'm just gonna play this baby out. Whoa. You know, with the smaller hook, I'm using like a #1 hook. The last thing you want to do is pull the hook. You definitely want to fight. Oh, there's another one right under it too. Same size. Oh yeah, it's definitely. They travel sometimes in little wolf packs. In that case there, that other one that's following about the same size. And this is a good one right here. Oh yeah, come on up, baby. Doesn't want to jump, but it definitely is bulldogging around. There we are. Oh yeah, that's not a bad one. Skinny guy, but definitely pretty nice. Pretty nice fish right there. That's on a black General, Max Scent General, and it's, look at that. That's a good one right there. All right. I think that's worthy of a picture, you know that? All right. Well, that is a healthy specimen. You can cradle them a lot of times like this. Just hold them, hold them. Now what I've got here is a pretty cool deal. Is I'm using this stick bait, but I have a weight on it as well. I've got a very small ultra tungsten weight, and it's a 16th ounce weight. So I've got a sliding bullet sinker on there. And the reason I have that is it's just a little more efficient. Now, I know a lot of folks love to fish, you know, these weightless, but I like to fish them many times just with a little bit of weight if I want to cover water. And in this case here, it's just a 16th ounce tungsten weight. And I've got a little 1 Nico hook there. Just a pretty basic rig really, but that thing falls slow through the water and as subtle as it gets, but it just sinks a little faster than say one without weight.
Coming up. Let's take a look down under with this week's Fish Eye View, sponsored by Mercury. Go boldly. Nearly everywhere you go these days, catch and release fishing pressure is the norm. As a result, standard presentations aren't as effective as they once were. In some cases, it's gotten so bad that some have reverted to live bait just to turn overeducated fish. One solution is downsizing simplified baits. It's a back-to-basics trend coupled with finesse presentations. The subtle drop of an unweighted Wacky rigged worm, for instance. Even so, there are situations where too much action, a rapid drop, or other exaggerated movements are viewed as man-made and associated with a bad experience. That brings us to the newest thing to hit the scene, dead sticking. Just as it sounds, this involves leaving a bait stationary somewhere in the water column. Drop shotting is one way to accomplish this, but is limited to bottom-oriented fish. Dead sticking is an all-round, multi-species method. Try it sometime for trout. We think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Need more proof? How many times has this happened to you? Working hard to turn a few fish and having little to show for, you put the rod down to grab a sandwich or drink. You guessed it. All hell breaks loose.
All right, next cast right back in there. Tighten up the drag. So there's obviously a school there because that was back-to-back casts, right in the same spot. So one thing about it is I've always got my foot ready to hit the power poles just to lock down so that I don't get on top of these fish and spook them. A lot of times what happens is you can get right on top of them and they're just gonna disperse and they're gonna be very hard to catch. Earlier in the season, maybe not as much, but when it gets into the fall like this, you know, you kind of get a crack at them and then they disperse and you got to find another school of them. Fish there could be supper for the last one I caught. Okay, this one here is definitely pliers. Pull her out right there, no problem. See you later, bud. You know, I like to work this bait by making a long cast and then just let it sink right down to the bottom on a fairly slack line. Then I'll just pull it and then just let it sink. And it's pretty basic way of fishing. It's about as do nothing as you're gonna get. And just pull it along, and let it sink down. Keep my rod at an angle where I can feel it. Thing is, they're gonna hold on to this bait if they do get it in their mouth. That's the good thing about it. There's a fish, right? Nope, that's a weed. Then when I get it about halfway to the boat, I usually reel up. That's where a good fast retrieve reel is good. Get the weeds off it, fire out another cast. I've mentioned this many times on the show before, but if your reel's properly spooled and has a lot of line on, you're gonna get a much longer cast with very thin diameter super line like this line here. It's like a nano fill. It's one of those gel spun lines that casts very far because it's thin diameter, but the key is fill that baby up. And, oh yeah. Now, hard to say because I got so much line out, whether this is a big boy or not, but oh yeah, that's a decent one. And once again, you know, it's just, I haven't even moved from this position here. I'm just staying locked down because, oh yeah, this is a good one here. Because I don't want to get too close to those fish. And, oh yeah, that's a good one. You know, you get too close to them, you really will spook them. And even though the water's a little cloudy for St. Clair, you can still see down. I can see bottom in 5 feet of water. And that's another good one right there. This, that's a fatty. Oh, no, that's not good. Now, I always, oh yeah, that was a good one. I always give people heck for making noise in the boat, and I dropped it. Now that one didn't have any followers, but in the case of, you know, when you're fishing with your friend, what you want to do, I'm just going to cut this line because that fish is taking it real deep. But what you want to do when you're fishing like this, and you can, you know, got good polarized glasses, you can see what's going on, is look for followers. And if you're fishing with, you know, your partner, you want to throw another bait in there quick so you can double up. But being a single person fishing today, it's harder. That's a skinny one, but a nice one. All right. No problemo. Okay, let me get another hook. Hey folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back with some more real smallmouth fishing after this.
Coming up.
That's like getting more top of the food chain right there. Oh man, this one feels like a good one right here. This one feels, well, you know what? They all feel good. And the water's still warm, so they're fighting pretty hard. But this one definitely has got some weight to it. So we'll see. Now, one of the things about when you're wacky rigging is picking a rod that, you know, I like either a medium action spinning rod or medium heavy spinning rod. And, you know, in a lot of cases, this is a good fish here. In a lot of cases, if I'm using an exposed hook like I am now, I'll just go with a medium action. Oh yeah, that's a nice fish right there. That's a good one. But something that's got a nice sensitive tip to it. You know, you want something that, see how it's loaded up here, it's bent. So it's gonna absorb that fight, but you don't want to use something that's too stiff that'll pull that little thin wire hook right out of its face. And oh yeah, that's a pretty good one right there. That's about, I can just steer it right in here, get in there. That's a heavier one there. That's like getting more top of the food chain right there. And see, it's got big belly on it. Got that black general sticking out of his nose. You know, one of the things is personally, I like a lot of subtle colors when it comes to stick baits. I like green pumpkin party, some that have like green and purple flake, black like I'm using today. You know, and it's almost like a personal preference or a confidence thing with stick baits, but yeah, that's pretty good fish there. You know, it's not definitely 4+, but thing is, I like subtle stick baits. Now, some people will go a little bit more brighter colors if it's overcast or the water might be, you know, maybe a little bit stained or colored. See you later, buddy. Personally, though, when I can see bottom, I always go with subtle. That's just me, though. That's the great thing about fishing. It's all about personal preference. One of the things is for hook setting is, you know, with this spinning rod, you want to reel into them first and then set. It's important not to, you know, it's not like largemouth fishing where, you know, it's that big macho hook set. Well, unless you're fishing with a wacky rig like I'm using here. What you really want to do is you want to just reel into them and then just set the hook. And the reason is that thin little wire hook, you can easily jerk that thing out. And so in that case, it's just hooked right in the roof of its mouth, just pop right out. And see you later, bud. Poof. Is it small or big? You know, funny, when they run towards you, they feel small. Then all of a sudden they turn and you look at them and they're still small. But one of the things, you know, when you're fishing Lake St. Clair, I still depend on my Navionics mapping. And what I like to depend on is to look for the sandbars that are here. And around the rim of the lake, you've got very subtle depth changes. And those subtle depth changes are what holds fish here. And it could be just as subtle as a foot or two of difference. And see you later, buddy. And so it's important when you're looking, and I'm fishing pretty shallow water here, 5-6 feet of water. So if you look at your Navionics mapping, you'll see where you've got some of these areas that, you know, are gradual, where there's, you know, 3, 4, 5, you know, and then it gradually goes out, but they're spread out. So a lot of the contour lines are spread out because it's a big bowl out here. But a lot of cases, these fish will just work when they're up shallow. And this is, you know, in the fall, these fish will come up when the sun's out, they'll come up on these shallow sandbars here.
Coming up.
I think this is a wee fella. Well, not too bad. You know, one thing about these smallmouth is, first off, if you're gonna wacky rig like I'm doing today, you want clear water. If the water's got a lot of color to it, chances are it's not that effective of a technique. Usually muddy water, wacky rigging just isn't as good a technique, but there's no question that when you're you know, fishing clear water and there's not a lot of wind, fishing a wacky style bait like this General here, that's just a little guy, can really pay big dividends. And you know, one of the things is long casts. Make sure that you use light line, and as I said earlier, I'm using a 10-pound nanofill line as my main line, and I've got a fluorocarbon leader on. I've got about 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet of 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. Then I just got a simple straight shank little Nico hook. Today I got a 16th ounce tungsten weight. Sometimes I won't have this little ultra tungsten weight on. Sometimes I'll just have no weight at all, just the weight of the hook and the weight of the bait. And basically, super long casts, and just soak it. That's all you want to do. You know, one thing about it is you really want to have some good boat control when you're doing this style of fishing. And I'm using the wind. There's a bit of a breeze today, so I'm blowing down this sandbar, basically keeping in that, you know, that same depth of water. And I'm really actually using my electric motor only when I have to at very low speed. And this is very, very important, is you don't want to, you know, just be cranking it on high or even on medium. I like it on low speed. And the other thing is I've got my power poles. So if I do catch a fish like this, or if I'm in a good area where I'm getting some bites, I'll put the power poles down. And I just don't want to spook them, because these fish up when they're up on sand are very, very spooky. That's a good one right there. Look at that. Oh yeah, nice one. You know, you just don't want to get right on top of them. You want to, you know, as I said earlier, make long casts and just make sure that, well, that one there is hooked pretty deep, so I'll just pop the line. You want to stay away from these fish, and the ultimate boat control is use the electric as little as possible. Use the wind to your advantage, so you blow down the area, and then if you do get a hit or two, pull down so you don't spook them. All right. See you later, bud. I had to do one last Hail Mary cast behind me as the sun was going down, and I couldn't resist. But you know, the crazy thing about Lake St. Clair, even though it's a big giant bowl, it's just full of fish. You know, you got incredible numbers of muskie out here. You've got largemouth that really nobody targets hardly, because there's so many of these brown fish, smallmouth in the lake. Oh yeah, that's a good one. And you know, having grown up in southwestern Ontario for the first 21 years of my life, I have to admit that it does hold some special memories coming back down here to southwestern Ontario and coming down to Mitchell's Bay and catching big old pigs like this. You know, it doesn't get much better than that, folks. We'll see you next week right here for some more Real Fishing.
Real Fishing was sponsored by Mercury, Go Boldly, Berkley, Catch More Fish, and Abu Garcia for life.
Well, that thing's got some weight to it. Size of that puppy right there. That is just wild.
Man.
Beautiful, beautiful. Look at the size of that thing.